Ladies and gentlemen, Angry Americans Worldwide, we have an incredibly honored guest to be with us today. I am humbled, I am grateful, I am inspired. The first ever Medal of Honor recipient we've ever had on this show, and a man I've known for many years.
That's right.
And admire, and I'm really grateful you could be here. The great and powerful David Bellavia. Welcome to Angry Americans, my friend.
Well, thank you for having me. And we've gone back a while. And, you know, it's crazy. I wanted to sit down with you. It's great that we're doing your show, and I want to support anything you're doing because I think you're a good man. But I've wanted to sit down with you for a very long time and just kind of go over, you know, this evolution that we had and how, you know, of all the things of the war, the one thing I never want to see is what happened in 2008, where the gladiators of public policy are the veterans. That absolutely, it ripped my soul out of my body. I'm ashamed of being a part of a process where, you know, because we disagree, somehow we're different. And one of the things that we pride ourselves in is that in the military, what you loved, what you looked like, who you worshiped, none of that mattered. We did our thing. We argued. We did everything because we're a family. But that division is something, you know, I never want to see again. And if I played a role in that, I don't want to be a part of that anymore.
And back at you, man. Yeah. I think that's part of why I wanted to create this show and create this forum, because you can't have real conversations in like a cable news soundbite. Right. Like you got to have a real sit down and a conversation about the most important issues facing this country, facing our families, facing our communities. And you are a really important voice. You were a very important voice before you received the Medal of Honor. And now thanks. It's on a whole nother level. And you and I haven't seen each other in person in, man,
it's been
maybe
years.
like a decade.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
Right?
I mean, I follow what you do because there were no one, you filled a vacuum that no one really had the courage to do at the time. Understand, when Chasing Ghosts came out, we didn't think the Iraq War, we didn't think we'd be 18 years into conflict.
Right.
This was really about the invasion of Iraq. It was a perspective that was like, this is my war experience. And we never thought down the road that there, you know, that we'd still be talking about the Iraq War in the sense that we were, you know, still had skin in the game. So you go from how long is this conflict going to end? What are the needs of the veterans in 2004 compared to the needs of the veterans, you know, in 2019? I mean, no one, you know, the idea that we're, and the other issue with that too is that we have this existential crisis where we want people to join the military. But the first thing we show after the Army has just invested a ton of money into brand new commercials. They got Peter Berg doing them.
Yeah.
Huge budgets.
He was a guest on this show a couple months back.
He's a stud. He's a great guy.
He's great.
But you've got like, you know, Michael Bay producing Army commercials.
Right.
And then right after that, you see a kid, literally right after the Army commercial, there's a kid with a prosthetic arm and a Wounded Warrior commercial. And it's such you're really screwing with moms and dads.
Yeah.
Right? Because
I think that's true. Yeah.
Trust us with your son. We're going to make him an individual in a community who's going to better the country and better when he's home. But, you know, here's the percentage that he's going to need, you know, help opening a microwave when he's 30.
And like the simplification that veterans are either villains, victims, or victors, right? Like there's this oversimplification. Either you're fighting a lava monster or you're crying in the streets, right? Begging for change,
Mouth breather.
And I think you're an example of a guy who defies those stereotypes and always has. But since it's Angry Americans, first of all, thank you for coming to the Car Club.
Thank you very much.
You were also a New Yorker.
That's right.
Which I am always happy to talk about. You grew up upstate,
Buffalo.
That's
right.
And you're in the city now. But I ask every guest to choose a cocktail or a beverage. And would you tell folks what you've chosen and why?
Well, I just am trying to impress you, so I got whiskey.
Dude, you're going to impress me either way, man.
No.
So we got Whiskey Rocks.
Are you a whiskey guy?
I am. So part of the show that you will find out is that we always talk about American whiskey.
All right.
And I will have a special surprise for you at the end. But cheers, my friend. Salute to you, sir.
Appreciate it.
To the Army, maybe? What do we toast to?
Yeah, to the Army. I'll take that.
To the Army? Because you are correct me if I'm wrong, you are the only living Medal of Honor recipient who has served in Iraq and was awarded the medal for operations in Iraq.
Right.
Correct?
And I can also say with that statement how absurd that is.
Right.
Because it really is shameful. I could find, I mean, just you name a place that you spent any time in and we can find a story. I mean, to understand how insane Iraq became was that areas that you might have been in 2003 that were, completely calm and it became restive and violent. Erbil, which everyone thought the north of Iraq was the safest place. And then ISIS comes in and you've got Christians being slaughtered out there. So you could find a story in every province of Iraq that is worthy of the Medal of Honor. I don't know what, it's easy to say it's politics, but it's an army thing. The Marines are like, why aren't there more Marines? That's a Marine Corps thing.
Right.
It's all the branches. I think we made a mistake in 2003 where we thought the war was going to end. We started giving out a bunch of awards. And then all of a sudden it was like, who's to say if this is an award, it's going to be worthy, there's going to be a story two years down the road. So it's awkward and it's weird to be the only living guy. I think that's pretty shameful.
I think we're going to see throughout this conversation that you're humble and you're about the team, and that's, what shined on that fateful day and what has shined before and after, I think, and why, when you came in, you're not wearing the medal, which is something we talked about because you guys can choose to do with it what you want, but you said, something like, it's over there, I want to see it. And it's in your jacket, right? And, you're just a dude walking around New York City with a friend, right? And you're coming to a car club. They don't know you're a Medal of Honor recipient walking in, but for me, when that comes out, right, the reverence and the respect and just so much of the history and sacrifice that's baked into that. I mean, I don't know if there's anything outside of my children I've held in my hands that I feel is so sacred.
Yeah, Paul.
Right?
So the first time I ever held one, it's, literally around my neck. And it felt like Lord of the Rings in a way, like I was and the other thing is that you feel like, I always had a chip on my shoulder because I was an Iraq vet. I always felt like I would hang out with my buddies who did the multiple deployment thing. And when I was in the Army, if you did, 15 months, you were like, tell us the stories of what was, you were just the grizzled. And now you got kids that were like 8-9 years away from their families. But it was when I hang out with my Afghan vet guys, they would always say, thank you for your service. That was the war, right? And then I'd be like, I was, in Iraq. And they would say, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you had to go through that. That was really horrible. And I was thinking to myself, when you make good wars and bad wars, that does trickle down to the vet. And, again, I wouldn't know a weapon of mass destruction if it literally fell on me. I mean, if you gave me a vote, I would have stayed home. You know what I mean? Somehow, why that we're pro-war, that we're somehow become apologists. The biggest concern I had when this thing happened was, am I going to be asked to defend the policies that brought us to war? Is this just going to be an award, or is this going to be an apology tour where we go every city and say, let's talk about Iraq. What were we doing? Should have been Iran. Let's go back. And everywhere I go with that thing, I have gold stars. Every day you hear, that, what is it? Time heals all wounds. Total bullshit. It doesn't heal a thing. If you lose a son unnaturally, catastrophically, man, that's every day. And with this thing, I'm ripping scabs. I go everywhere and I go up to a woman and I'm like, hey, your son died in Ramadi. Let me just cut you again.
Right.
Let's live that again. And you get all of this emotion. So it's, there's nothing enjoyable about going to people that are still grieving and saying, I'm here standing with an award and your son, not only is never coming home, who's reminding people that he lived, who's reminding people why he died, And so I just personalize all that by saying, I get the people that ask me, why did we fight? What do you tell a mom whose son died? They died for us. I mean, we very well could have been, you could have been extended. You could have been put in a different unit. and you're going out doing your thing, everyone who kicks down a door expects a bad guy to be there. Just because you don't find them doesn't mean you're any less brave or any less tough. So it's been a pretty big burden.
That's a really powerful point, the burden. So I've been privileged enough, Dave, to be around a number of Medal of Honor recipients, to be around folks like Jack Jacobs and Bob Carey and Sammy Davis and so many others. I actually had, you've got a weird Forrest Gump kind of couple of years here where you don't know where you're going to show up, right? I've had some of those experiences where I was at the Indy 500 once with, I think, all of the living Medal of Honor recipients, or many of them, on the track at Indy 500, and got to be around Sammy and some of these other guys that are legends, but also just great humans, right? But have gone through this really unique experience, like a totally elite experience or a unique experience, like going into space. Like no one can relate to what it's like unless you've gone into space, right? You just don't know what it's like. And I got to imagine that receiving the medal is similar. And Bob Carey, I think was the guy who said to me, remember that every time they tell the story, it hurts. Like they're sacrificing to some extent. They're telling you often about what might be one of the worst days of their life. And maybe they're telling it for others, but it is, I think, every time you tell the story, it's a service. And it does help others, but it's also, it's in many ways the award nobody wants to get, right? Because it is such a tremendous weight to carry, but you've carried it with such dignity, in part because you got it after you've been home for a while.
Oh, absolutely.
You and I were kind of Iraq Vet 1.0.
That's right.
Right, we were like invasion phase, came home. Now you've got 3.0, 4.0, folks who've gone back over and over again. We were kind of the first wave of veterans to come home and enter the political conversation, the social conversation, the media conversation. But if I can ask you, for folks who haven't heard the story from you, what do you want them to know about the story?
I want them to know that combat is everything Hollywood has told us and everything that veterans have told us. But there is absolute love on the battlefield. We fight because we love. And, I think of those guys. I think about what they did for me. It's, you boil it really down to why you every day go out there and do the things that you do for your buddies, for your subordinates. The pressure that's on young leaders. You talk about Sammy Davis and all these guys. As an infantryman, I memorized those citations. I'm wearing this and meeting Sammy Davis. It's like meeting Iron Man.
Right.
It's like
Sammy Davis, many say, is actually the inspiration for Forrest Gump, right?
Sammy Davis, in case people don't know, he basically made an inflatable raft. And he took a mattress raft and put his buddies on it and suppressed a battalion of enemy with a rifle while inflating a raft. I mean, it's like
running people back and
forth to save lives. I mean, it's like it's MacGyver, and it's just ridiculous. It should never happen. And then
his name's Sammy Davis,
and he's a
white guy.
And my first response
with
to
a southern accent,
when I'm reading that story in basic training, thinking, why don't we have inflatable mattresses? This is these beds are so uncomfortable. But no, that guy's a stud. Jack, all of them. Hershey, Miyamura. My God, I mean, that dude is and again, but you bring up that generation, and here's the thing: nobody talks about legacy until they're getting ready to die, right? So when you're in your 20s and 30s, what is your legacy? You think kids or job or whatever it is, but this Vietnam generation, they protected us from a whole lot, and they made sure. Every time I hear a World War II guy, talk about the Vietnam generation, it's like, wait a minute, you would have nothing at the VA if it wasn't for the Vietnam guys.
Right.
I mean, the Vietnam guys literally have done everything for every veteran that's today before us and after us. So it's an incredible generation, but they're totally different than we are. Right. And there's something to be said about the narcissism of us younger people, but that narcissism also allows you to look in the mirror and say, this is my purpose. This is who I am. Right. And that generation is so new to the thanks and new to the appreciation that they're kind of new to this too.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, they're kind of like reborn through us, right? Like when I was at the Veterans Day Parade a couple of years ago, there were Vietnam veterans who walked for the first time.
Exactly.
And they said they had never been welcomed. They didn't know what to do or how to display their Medal of Honor in the 70s, right? Like that was a very polarized, complicated time where people blamed the warriors for the war. And you might have to actually be worried for your safety if you wore a Medal of Honor around, right? Like
you're absolutely. And so Gary Bykirk and Jack Jacobs and Joe Marm and Gary Luttrell, all these guys have they really only experienced general thanks and appreciation really since September 11th. For 50 years they've had the award, and it really didn't. So my takeaway is I look at these young guys, these guys in Afghanistan. I'm the oldest of the GWAT recipients that are living, and I look at how they've handled it, and every one of them, incredible pressure, and there was no safety net. Sal Giunta was just out there. The Army didn't even support him.
We talked about this earlier. When he was, I think, the first living Medal of Honor recipient post 9/11. He was working, I think, in Subway like 5 years before that. Joined the Army, received the Medal of Honor, comes home, and then he's standing at the 50-yard line of the Super Bowl, right? I mean, he's on this trajectory that's almost like when you, I hate to say, like hit a lottery or win an Oscar or something. I don't know how to compare it, but overnight, you go from being an average person to someone whose life will never be the same again. And on a stratospheric level, where I remember Sal sitting down with, every late night talk show host. And, it's got to be a surreal experience, especially in the social media generation. And also, Dave, like the Vietnam vets and the World War II vets we're losing them quickly.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a unique burden on you guys, and they're all guys right now. Maybe there'll be a woman at some point in the future. There are a dozen of you. Like those guys will all pass.
That's
and
right.
Then they'll only be like a very select, almost Knights of the Round Table.
Well, but here's the other thing. You've got 18 years of conflict. America, I don't care who you elect president, we're not going to sustain contact again. We're not going to move 200,000 troops in an area that we're going to have to own. I think the America's now waking up to what the future warfare looks like. You're not going to have a USS Missouri press conference and you hand someone a sword. If you go to war, it is going to be a 50-year occupation. So think about that before you start going down the list of countries you want to throw against the wall, because it's different. It's totally different now. But as you said, to me, when you talk about Sal and all these other guys, it's a testament to that guy. I mean, because Sal Giunta bore all that burden himself. Today, the Army has totally redone everything. They send a team of 12 generals to your house. They walk you through public relations and how to talk and how to think. And, they're much more protective of the recipient today than they were when the other guys got it. And the other phenomenon that's a little bit weird is when you start awarding two guys for the same fight. And that's a really unfair burden to put on a unit, because, now you're essentially saying, well, this guy did this and this guy did something very similar, but here's his award. It's not fair to either one of those guys. There's got to be a way that we can, I think, do this process better so that all the branches, quite frankly, are in the room.
Right.
I mean, what happened to Brian Chapman, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but he's an Air Force guy. And I think people look at Air Force, they don't understand how many different jobs are in the Air Force. Or the other thing is, those combat control guys, they are in the fight every single day. They're getting shot at. There's incredible stories of Air Force guys doing good things. But, you look at these SEALs, if they can't get an award because now they can't operate,
can't be recognized publicly.
Right.
It compromises their identity.
But am I supposed to say that a Navy SEAL who kills 10 guys in a house fight is what? He's supposed to do that because he's a Navy SEAL?
Right.
So what do you say when if an infantryman makes a cake during a firefight?
Right.
Well, hey, that's amazing.
I think somebody, maybe it was Bing West or someone said that in a Medal of Honor, something extraordinary has to happen. Someone has to see it, and someone has to write about it.
Oh, absolutely.
And if the story isn't told, the medal usually doesn't happen. And I think it was our friend, I don't know if you know that, Michael Ware.
Oh, yeah.
Who I've known for a long time, who's a wild man, but an incredibly courageous reporter. I hope he'll join me on this show. But if you may remember Michael Ware from CNN during the early days of the Iraq War. Now, he was, I think, one of the people who first told your story, right?
I don't know the role of I don't have evidence of anything because, quite frankly, they don't show you your packet. So you don't even know who the sworn statements were. You don't know anything.
The packet that is submitted on your behalf.
Right. Nor have I ever been formally interviewed about the story. The Army has never taken me down and said, what happened?
Really?
Yeah. They went to everyone else and said, what did you see? Don't tell me what happened. Tell me what you saw. Like if you heard gunfire but you were outside, they don't care. What did you see?
So can you tell the story as much as you're comfortable, if you're comfortable?
Oh yeah.
As you would like it to be told, right?
We were so my story of my unit was 2-2 infantry. We were out of Germany, and we were the first ID, and we were long considered to be just a peacekeeping division. I mean, the days of the Normandy beaches were long gone. I mean, Bosnia, Kosovo, nothing was happening there. And when I got to Iraq, I was just like, I don't even think we're going to get a combat infantryman's badge. There were talk that we wouldn't even get a combat badge, And so we got there. Everyone's kind to us. Diyala province is right on the Iranian border. Did not see a lot of, American soldiers. So they were kind of new to this invasion thing, but contact was few and far between, and it wasn't real, a guy here or there. But man, Abu Ghraib happened, and that started the Easter uprising in 2004. Now you've got Muqtada al-Sadr, you've got the Mahdi militia, and then Al-Qaeda takes over in Anbar, and it just seemed like a perfect storm of everything was falling apart. And because we had a Bradley fighting vehicle, in an urban fight, it was the most conducive way to get troops in and out, and that 25 millimeter is awesome. So we go to Najaf, and then a company is sliced out to Mosul, and then we get the Fallujah fight, and really, the Fallujah fight took forever to kick off because Bush and Kerry were going at it, and so we had to wait for the election.
And the city was surrounded,
right?
And it was kind of waiting for the political okay,
right? And again, we lost the city. We gave our equipment over to what we thought was a friendly element of Fallujah. They took it. So it was just, information operations was really the key during that era. Fallujah kicks off. We get through the city without a problem on our breach. Our engineers blow it up. The Marine Corps gets stymied. So imagine thousands of American troops lined up, ready to blow a bugle and head over the berm, and they got one entryway. So it took like 2 days for everyone to get into their combat position and attack. And in that time, we're doing our thing, which is supporting the Marine Corps. That was their fight. We were just 2-7 on one flank, 2-2 on the other, and a bunch of tanks. And we were the only thing in town. And that just brought everyone to that section. And so for like 5 days, it was pretty hairy, but then it became hairy for everyone else in Fallujah. But we locked in a bunch of guys in a city block. My sergeant major is killed on day one, which was like emotionally debilitating. That's like the principal of your high school dying, And then my company commander is killed, and then my XO is killed, and it's like lieutenants, ROTC kids, branch transfer, guy that's in accounting now, infantry. He's running a company, he's running working, doing things he never thought he was going to be able to do. A lot of stress on those young LTs. But we get into this building and we're looking for these guys. The Bradleys locked them in 8 to 10. And of course, we walk in, it's an ambush. And then it's just a matter of what do you know and what can you actually do? The reason why vets make great finance guys. I mean, Wall Street is full of veterans.
Yeah.
We don't need 100%. You give us, look, I know what you could do and I know what I can do. I don't know anything about what's on the other side of that wall, but I know you and I know what you can do and I know what I can do. Let's roll the dice. Right? Yeah. I think between you and me, we could figure out whatever's on the other side, right? In the real world, you got to have 100%. Don't waste a dime unless you know 100%. You never get that in the Army. You'll never get that. And in this case, Paul, I could tell you honest to God, if I did something similar to that 99 times, I probably get, killed 97. you talk about what the basis of Valor Awards, a lot of it is really shitty situational awareness. I mean, really, like not knowing Paul Ray Smith knocks a wall down and there's a battalion of enemy right there. Now, someone should have told that unit that they were on the other side, right? What does he do? It's not that, oh my God, we're all screwed. It's, I'm going to shoot him until I can't breathe anymore. And that's why Paul Ray Smith is an American icon, because he made that decision knowing he was going to die. A lot of times you just don't know what the hell you're doing. And Paul, it's dark. You're shooting at targets. I don't want to sound like every terrorist looks the same, but in a dark area when people are shooting AKs, you don't know if it's a different person or the same person. Am I hitting people? It's not like in Hollywood where you shoot a person and they just drop.
Right.
They will fight with every ounce of life they have. And so would you, by the way. You would do the exact same thing. So it's just, the first time I got shot at, I remember thinking, man, Spielberg, you don't know what you're doing.
You wanted to call Steven Spielberg and say, it doesn't look like that.
You shoot a car, it doesn't blow up.
Yeah, it's not American Sniper where you see down the barrel and you watch the round cut through the town and hit the target.
Right.
It's just kind of noise and chaos everywhere.
Yeah. And a grenade isn't fire.
Right.
And an AT-4 doesn't blow anything up. Right. It's a flaming pencil. It's what it is.
A flaming pencil. That's great. Yeah.
So my thing is that like so much of the combat experience, I was really unimpressed.
So you did not, bottom line is you did not know what you were going into.
I didn't know what I was going into. And I just kept going until my luck ran out. And honestly, the smells and the propane and the explosives really changed that entire fight for me, because I don't know anything about propane and I don't know anything about explosives. And when I'm smelling natural gas,
correct me if I'm recounting this wrong. There were propane tanks in a room.
Oh, they're all lined up, and there's C4 and everything else lined up, and you start
lined up to explode because they're rigging it to blow.
Right, a building contained IED. And the thing is that now you're shooting and missing. Am I hitting a tank? What's that do? Am I going to blow myself up inadvertently
But you knew there were propane tanks in the room.
Yes, tripping
over. And
you
knew that if you shot the wrong direction, you might hit one and everybody goes.
I was smelling a really pungent natural gas smell that was it was actually almost, making me lightheaded. It was so strong.
And simultaneously trying to take out an unknown number of enemy.
Right. And you don't know who you're in and how many and what's going on. So my goal at that point was just to soften them up, get them to run out of the house, get the guys to shoot them. And at some point, I just realized, well, maybe I'll rile them up and get them on one level of the house. And then I'll just get near the, because once you're running around, you could very well get shot by your own.
Right.
So, I'm worried more about getting popped. And then, of course, now it's a bomb's coming in. The bomb that we called hours before, so this would never happen, is now ready to be dropped. So now the clock is ticking. Is the bomb going to kill us? What we're going to do? So it was really stressful.
And in those moments, Dave, is it your training? Is it your upbringing? Is it muscle memory?
It's just
how did you get through that, or in what way did you get through that?
I just thought about, I had a 4-year-old boy, and I just thought, I hope to God, if my kid ever is in harm's way, that someone cares enough, as much about him as I do. And so I just kept thinking of those soldiers and just thinking, could you imagine being the leader that has to hand a folded flag to a parent? And you were like, well, and I was there, I could have done something, but it just didn't work out that way. I just felt a huge obligation. It was like a life-changing obligation that I had to love them like they were mine. And that meant just making sure that they weren't scared or hurt or anything else. And, cause God, when I needed them, they were there, and they saved my life. They did things I didn't have the strength to do. They did things I wasn't brave enough to do. It was our family. You are Monday, I'm Tuesday, right?
Right.
That's how we do it. Right. And if it's Monday, Paul, guess what? You're doing it.
Right. But it comes, I think it's really enlightening for folks to hear you talk about it in that way, Dave, because it's from the outside, people can think it's about anger or it's about hate or it's about politics.
Oh no,
but
I've tried
it. It's about love. Oh, it is. It's about the love for the person next to you. It's about the love for something else. It's about the realization of what's in front of you. And your situation is nothing I can even relate to. But you hear that constant theme, whether you're a Medal of Honor recipient or you were in, the chow hall just doing your job. Like everybody does it from a sense of love and obligation to each other and to something bigger, right? In the end of the day, it's not about politics. It's not about any president. It's about those men and women to the left and the right of you, right? And that's why you have been credited with this valor, because you did it for others. And I think anyone who knows you can see that's who you are. And in that moment, you became the best of who you are.
It was, yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's kind. That's awesome. But again, this is our generation's award. I try to give it to let people hold it as much as I can, because it's easier for me to do it. And the second thing is that I just think Iraq is one of those fights where, man, you're realizing over time that this is really bad. And how are we going to deal with this in 20 years? That never, did you ever think about your 44-year-old self?
No, we're the same age.
Right.
We're 44. So you're the oldest of the next generation.
That's right.
At 44.
At 44.
And when you were in Iraq for this day, you were
29. It was my birthday. It was my 29.
And then
what were you? You were like 25?
We were the same age, yeah, I think basically. Yeah. I think I was 23, 24 when I was there.
Were you thinking about this time of your life?
No, not at all, right? Like I never thought I was going to be 40 when I got married, which I was, right? And had kids when I was 41. We were talking about this on the way up. I want my next book to be Old Dad, This Shit's Hard. Because I never envisioned being so old, but I don't think I envisioned any of it. And when my book came out around the same time, I think your book came out, right? People, when we were going through the publishing process, they said, what if the war ends before the book comes out? Nobody's going to be interested, right? And I would say, this is not going to end. And even if it does, it's a historical account, or at least my personal account of my time that was there. And everybody, I think, has a book in them. But you come home. Let me
just say, Chasing Ghosts.
Yeah.
Go ahead. One of the things about that book that really changed the memoir market was that you were basically making predictions of how bad the war was going to be as the war was really getting bad.
That's what I want. I mean, when I came home, I was basically like, hey, this shit's fucked up. And it's going to get worse.
And it's going to get worse. And so now what's happening is all these publishers are saying, if you're going to do a book, you've got to have a political point of view as well.
Well, yeah. And they were worried, what if you're wrong? I remember, I've been very critical of President Bush, and I was critical of President Bush in the book. And the publishers literally said to me, what if everyone turns around and loves Bush by the time this book comes out? I was like, well, it's still the same book. Like, I'm telling my story, and I still think that, George Bush had better be fucking right was the opening line of my book, because he was rolling the dice, right? And rolling us into this situation. And I never thought we would not find weapons of mass destruction. Right, you talked about it earlier. Like, we kicked in a lot of doors looking for weapons of mass destruction, right? Oh, yeah. And I never thought we wouldn't find them. I was like, shit, somebody's going to put them somewhere.
Right. They're in Syria.
Because there's no way we're going to send all these people overseas and not find anything.
There's going to be a lockbox.
Yeah. You couldn't have predicted. But I guess, we all kind of had the ability to be like the Tony Romo. We knew the playbook. We could see what was happening when I came home. And when you came home, we were the first veterans on TV. We were the first veterans writing books. There was a string of books that first came from journalists.
Right.
Then
their embedded experience.
Then they came from generals.
Exactly.
Then they came from us.
That's right.
We were this wave of and really those are the most important ones, right? If you go back to Tim O'Brien and things they carried and so many others, the really good, I would argue most important books are the ones who are from that perspective on the ground at the intersection between experience, personal story, politics. And so you come home and you write a book,
right?
You get involved in politics and philanthropy.
I jumped in. I thought that I was defending the memory of my friends, and I made the biggest mistake you can make in politics. Is I took everything personally. I got super emotional. I got super tied into it. So when you were attacking my fight, you were attacking the legacy of guys who gave up their tomorrows, will never have kids, will never have Christmas. And I was so miserable. You probably go through this too. You're hanging out. It's Christmas Day and the babies are unwrapping presents. So you're having a great dinner with friends, being with people you care about. And all you think about is happy, happy, happy. And then you're like, I wonder what Carlos Rivera's parents are doing right now. I wonder what, how's Christmas for, the Falkenberg family after their, and you just find that you're just literally imploding your entire, we validated each other every day. And we come home, we don't have that validation. That political fight for me in 2006, 7, and 8, that was like a new platoon. And we were going up against the bad guys, but the bad guys were our own people.
I think it's really, and it
makes
really
me so it makes me so sad to have not had the wisdom at that point to be able to walk across to my liberal friends and say, we disagree about the war, but let's go. Like, how are you doing?
Yeah,
you all right?
Well, you and I think always had a personal connection, even if we disagreed about the war at that time. But I think you mentioned the Christmas thing, and your way of describing the Sergeant Major as the principal is so right. Like, we lost Command Sergeant Major Eric Cook on Christmas Eve, and it was like that. It was like losing the principal. So I think about him on Christmas Eve. Right? I remember Christmas in Baghdad, and that always sinks into it sneaks into my brain. And I think we all do it, and it makes us a little bit sad, and it makes the whiskey a little bit sweeter, right? There was one bottle of whiskey that my father somehow sent over that was Maker's Mark, and on Christmas Eve, after Sergeant Major Cook was killed, I think I wrote about this in the book, we had one bottle that went around that room. And that's what I think I often remember too, is how generous everyone was, how kind everyone was. People get this idea that, soldiers are all, grunts and want to kill shit and all that. And that, part of that is part of the training and part of it's true, but they're also the most generous human beings I've ever seen. If there's one piece of food left on the table, they'll split it 9 ways. If there's one cigarette, it'll go around the entire room. Right?
When I saw like the Iraq vets against the war and some of the more, IAVA was the first group. And then there was a political faction of that. And that's where Vets for Freedom came, out of Vote Vets for Freedom clashes. And then you had people that even more, found another position on the political plane there of where they stood. And it just became like, why isn't McCain and Obama on Chris Matthews?
It became a proxy war.
It absolutely
right? And it also kind of became like Baghdad.
The things the McCain campaign didn't want to say, they allowed a PFC machine gunner to say.
Right.
And the things the Obama campaign didn't want to put out there, they let John Soltz do.
Right. And that's the proxy war that developed, especially between Vets for Freedom and Vote Vets, left and right. And then IAVA, tried to go above it as best we could and remain nonpartisan. But in that atmosphere, everything was viewed as partisan. Everything was viewed as political. So for me, it was the evolution of this second fight, right? We had the fight in Iraq, and then we came home, and what I think we all have learned a lesson about was how the political machines and the politicians turned us against each other.
Yeah.
And I think almost always, if you go back and look, I told Hardball and others, I was like, I'm not going on against another
You
vet.
didn't.
I was I'm not going on against another vet. There might have been a couple exceptions, like early, but I said, I'm not going on to fight with somebody. And I said, you're not going to put me in a box.
Right.
And by putting me in a box and putting Dave in a box or putting Pete Hegseth in a box, you're creating this false simplification that we're on opposite sides. And I'm not playing that fucking game.
And now listen, I love Hegseth. I've known that guy. He embraced it.
Yeah, well,
that's his thing, and I don't take anything away from that.
And so did Soltz. I mean,
they're political animals.
Yeah,
but there was a time when I thought like, this award has changed everything. I went from thinking, what do you do with the Medal of Honor? If you're 23, you go date a model, or you know what I mean. You get, and then it's like, well, you're going to go to a defense contractor, or you're going to sell late night sunglasses, with other people that have done things kinetically or something. And I thought, what if we just like, the new thing was you get the Medal of Honor and you're alive and you go right back to the Army. You go to the outfit, the organization, the family.
Petrie, I think, and some of the other guys went back on active duty, right?
Well, I'm just saying not necessarily active duty, but just going and supporting them. Everything is back. Leroy does it. Everyone's doing it now. I think that's something our generation is going to be different than the Vietnam guys.
I want to let you take a breath because I know this is intense, but also there's kind of a funny side of this. When we came in, you said it's kind of like carrying around the Stanley Cup.
That's right. Yeah, right? Everyone gets a day with it.
I mean, do you have insurance on it, or does the government have insurance on it?
This is a true story. So here's what happened. I go and my homeowners, I wanted to get a policy in case someone broke into the house and took the Medal of Honor.
An umbrella policy. So I got one for my wife's engagement ring.
They said, okay. So they said, listen, we gotta get a price on it, but if it's over a certain amount, you're gonna have to get a safe.
Okay.
If it's over a certain amount, you're gonna have to have a camera just to reduce the liability. They went to price it. No one will give them a price. It's kind of like when President Trump says his brand is worth $7 billion.
Right.
Like, how do you prove it?
Right.
What do you know? Right. I don't know. So everyone says, $250,000. The Medal of Honor is a $250,000 value because it's one of a kind and it represents one thing, whatever. I got it appraised. It's $26.99 to replace it.
Get the fuck out of here.
To replace. So if I went to AFES, it's $26.99, and your homeowner is going to be like, it's $26.99.
That's ridiculous.
Buddy. Yeah,
that's ridiculous. Funny. That has to be adjusted. Can I ask you? One of the things that folks have never seen is what's on the back.
Oh yeah.
And I'm reluctant to even pick it up. But can you tell? So on the back
it's just your name, the date, your unit, where it happened.
So it's Staff Sergeant David G. Bellavia, right? Mm-hmm. And what's the G stand for?
Gregory.
And then it says Company A, Task Force 2-2, and then is it 1st Infantry Division?
Yes.
Operation Iraqi Freedom, 10 November 2004.
Yeah.
Man, one day from Veterans Day.
Yeah, that's my birthday. November 10.
So that's your birthday that's on the back.
Yeah,
not the day of the operation.
The day of the event was my birthday.
It was your birthday?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
That was the one thing in the back of my head was like, I used to go in a cemetery and see like born and died on the same day.
Yeah.
And I thought like, if I could just get to midnight, you know what I mean? Yeah. Just change this so that my parents don't have to think of that day as such a horrible day.
And Veterans Day is the day after, and Marine Corps birthday is right around that time. Right. So that's a busy time for you. And then on the bottom, I asked you this, and you see it says Graco G1. Maybe that's a company that makes them.
It has to be.
We got to talk to that. We got to talk to that company because they're worth more than $26.
These guys go to bowling trophy guys and make facsimiles of it.
Really?
And then take the original, put it in a safety deposit. So, that is the original. I only have one, and that's it.
So I gotta ask you, what was it like when you got the call? Paul, how did you find out?
Paul, I swear to God, I thought I was in trouble. I thought they were doing an investigation, that someone said something, and I was in trouble. And so I called an attorney, and I was like, hey, I got a crazy
call. So you got a call from the Army. Where'd you get a call from?
I got a call from a person who was connected to G1 personnel, but there were just questions about, is this true? Did you do
cell phone rings? Major.
They called my work. They called my work and left a message, but I got back to them and they're like, I can't tell you anything. You got to talk to this person. So you wait. You talk to a colonel. Colonel tells you senior member of the DOD needs to talk to you. Asked a bunch of questions that were like really super specific about special pieces of whatever. You confirm, you deny, you do whatever. So I called an attorney and said, look, I just find out what's going on. He's like, you're either going to be an ambassador to a country or you're going to jail for the rest of your life. And they're going to extradite you to you're going to Camp X-ray,
and you're living in Buffalo?
I'm living in Buffalo. I'm doing my thing. I'm doing a radio show.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm doing, my standard, conservative radio talk, cat decline, a little bit of controversial drive time talk of Buffalo. And this stuff just keeps happening and happening. And so I get a phone call. This important person at DOD is going to call me and like they blow me off. And it happened like 4 times. Keep getting blown off. And I'm thinking, but every time something weird happens, like Mattis resigns or,
You've been a very vocal supporter of President Trump.
I'm a conservative.
Right. So it's not outside the realm of possibility you would be appointed to some position somewhere.
Well, it is. It is. Is it? You know, but if they're appointing me, I'd say it's well.
I don't think Trump's calling me make me the best or anything unless he wants me to get the hell out of here.
You got the UMass. You've got all that stuff in your resume. I wasn't thinking anything. I was just thinking, maybe it's Secretary of the Army.
Right.
And maybe they upgraded the Silver Star.
Okay.
I get a letter in the mail.
Because at the time you had was it a Bronze Star for Valor for the for
No, that? I just had a Bronze Star for Service, which is lifetime
but that
achievement.
incident had been
Silver Star
recognized with a Silver Star at the time. So the question was always, would they upgrade it?
Would they upgrade it? Right. And I get a letter saying that my Silver Star is rescinded, and I was like, "Whoa, what is happening? Is this because of the award? Is this because of the charges
you said on radio?
What's happening here?" And I get a phone call, and they said, "Hey, the phone call is going to happen at 2 p.m. Pick up." And it's the President of the United States. And then you're thinking someone's messing with you.
Right.
It's Alec Baldwin. It's, some dude's just messing with you. And it was him. And I freaked out. I was just blown away by it. And then, the real thing is I can't tell anyone. And how do you keep this out of the media? How do you, just live your life but still freak out? And I just started talking to all these guys I haven't talked to in 15 years. And it was like so cathartic to just be able to, when you're 25, you don't tell a man you love him, but at 44, I'm not going to, if I love you, I'm going to tell you I love you, and it's just a different world. And so I just got to be with these guys again, and it just felt so warm. And then all of a sudden people want a piece, and they want, you to go to every event and every memorial, and you become a mascot. It's like when you put that on, it's almost like you're putting on like a Batman uniform. It's right. Not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're not, that's
very
not
much.
you.
If you were walking around, in Buffalo or in the city, people didn't know who you are. You're a normal dude. You put that on and it's Superman cape.
And that's with a radio show. Yes. So just to show you the effect of the radio show, no one knew who the hell I was. But no, it just is weird. It's
so
weird.
What did Trump say when he called? Do you remember what he said?
I was just trying not to say that.
Where you were standing when you got the call?
Yeah, I was at the radio station. And we were just hanging out and getting ready for this phone call, not really sure it was Trump, not knowing what would happen. But at that point, it was like, who's that? Was Secretary of the Army's not that busy.
Right.
We play Navy one time.
Right.
No, but it ended up happening that it was him, and he just said, he actually did the Woody Williams thing. The thing he got in trouble for Woody Williams. I wish I could give one to myself.
Oh, right.
He said that to me on the phone.
So he said to Woody Williams when
it's
the award.
A cool award.
It's a cool award. I wish I could give one to myself. Something like that.
That's his funny that he's trying to be humorous when he does it.
And that's what he said to you.
He said that to me. It was funny. I mean, he was like, this is an awesome award. As president, I'd like to give one to myself. But they said I'm not that brave. And that's literally what he said to like 3 other recipients. So it's not like, I don't know. My point is that it was weird. The whole thing was weird. I'm talking to the president of the United States, and the president's, cracking a joke, and then he gets really serious. And when he gets super serious, I start, realizing that this is happening. And, just everything changes. You can't have an opinion anymore. I can't do a radio show with a Medal of Honor. It's like, the Medal of Honor is against free trade. The Medal of Honor.
But you can. I mean, Bob Kerry ran for president, right? Bob Kerry ran as a Democrat from Nebraska. I hope he'll join us on the show at some point in the future.
Great man.
He's been a great mentor to me. You can absolutely, I'm going to tell you, like in many ways, you absolutely can. And you're still an individual, and we need your voice more than ever. And what's frankly hard sometimes is to get candor out of Medal of Honor recipients because you've seen so much. Like, and especially now in this next phase of your life, you've seen so many different sides of politics and this country and the world. You guys, I've said it before, if America was a religion, veterans are the clergy. And in some ways, the Medal of Honor recipients are like the samurai elite. I mean, you all are the protector of the flame.
What would you do? Do you see politics? Would you ever run?
Well, this is a great question to have with you, because I was going to ask you that. I mean, I'm an independent, right? Like I really am, and I don't have a political home. And for me, this is the path to continue to serve and continue to make noise and to fight for the issues I care about. And Congress fucking sucks, and being in politics really sucks. It's not my path, man. I don't know where I would go in that way. And I like New York City too much. I don't want to leave. I don't want to wear a fucking tie.
But don't you
There's
think
a lot of other shit that, you know.
And in your most honest moment.
Yeah.
Don't you think, I thought veterans made the best politicians in the world.
100%, but maybe not this veteran.
No, but I got to tell you, I don't know if that's true anymore.
I agree with you on that. I think
we're actually really bad politicians.
We might be. I think, look, you know, veterans are not a monolith, right? There's some great veterans, there's some shitty veterans. But you did run for Congress twice.
I did. I'm saying that I believe
before you got the medal.
Before I got the medal.
And now, just a couple of weeks ago, you announced you will not run.
Yes.
They want you to run again. You would probably win in 27th Congressional District? 27th, upstate New York, outside of the Buffalo area. Right? The current occupant has now resigned in scandal.
Right.
And so there's an open seat essentially coming up.
Yeah.
Right. Am I getting it right?
It would be a special election, and then it would be. Look, I'm confident that if I chose to, I could hold that seat for 20 years.
Right.
Because it's an R+12, which is a very conservative area.
Right.
Lock in step with the president. Conservative stuff, guns, all that stuff. You know.
What about something else?
Why would you do it? Why are you doing it? You're doing it because the award has somehow.
No, but what about governor? What about governor? What about Senate? You could run against Kirsten Gillibrand or something like that in New York.
Or we can inspire 6,000 New Yorkers to join the military. And we can put a whole new generation of cyber guys out there, so we don't have to bleed.
Let me ask you a related question. You are close with the president, right? He praised you at the last Medal of Honor recipient ceremony for Williams, right?
Right.
And called you out personally.
Right.
And what about going in the administration? Would you go work at the Department of Defense, go work in the White House, go do something like that, Dave?
I just think the award is a holy thing. And if I'm a conservative, I'm never going to change my ideology. This is who I am. I'm unapologetic about it. But the award can't be. The award can't be pro-life. You know what I'm saying? The award can't have a stance.
I think that's a really noble way of approaching it. Fracking.
The award would like to talk about hydraulic fracking.
We could do a cartoon on the actual award itself. Right, so let me ask you a question I always ask of all folks, and thank you for taking us through this journey. I ask every person I've ever interviewed, because you are a person who is shaping what this country is, what it has been, and what it will be going forward. David Bellavia, what makes you angry?
Fear. When I get scared, I get really hostile. It's like I don't know what it is, but it's a thing that's my Achilles heel. You know? Yeah,
I think that's really honest. Yeah, and part of why we created the show is because I think anger is a real thing, and we got to talk about it.
Yeah, and
also, can we turn that anger into positive outcomes?
Right.
And I think that's what you've been able to do. Right. In this evolution, in this time with the medal. And related question, David Bellavia, what makes you happy?
Purpose. Knowing that this is what you're supposed to do. These are the people you're supposed to be with. This is the life you're supposed to live. It's like I grew up watching wrestling, and the idea of pinning someone was the ultimate. And now I'm starting to realize that, as I get older, that we argue because we want to dominate. We argue because we want to prove, and we want to prove because we're insecure. Right? So I'm not insecure about what I believe. And if you want to be really loud about what you believe, I know what I know to be true. So I'm not at all, I don't need to bash you. I don't need to wrestle with you. I don't need to scream at you. Let's talk about what we agree on. You're a Giants fan. I like the Bills.
The Bills making you happy? The Bills are better than the Giants and the Jets right now. The Bills are kind of making you happy. They make you happy and angry.
I love the Bills so much, but I got to tell you, you got to be honest with yourself. This schedule has been really kind.
Yes.
Yeah. This isn't a team.
Give me a little hope. I root for the Bills. I mean, they're the best football team in New York right now.
Only.
Well, yeah, true. Well, you got Army, and Army, unfortunately for us, sucks this year.
Well, that's true.
They're not looking good against Navy coming up, in December.
That's true. Army, poor Army. Yeah, we're too focused on winning wars to
There you go, right? We get jokes for days.
That's right.
So let me ask, when you're growing up in Buffalo, this is the other question we ask of all our guests. David Bellavia, what was your first car?
I had a 1982 Grand Marquis.
Ooh.
Light blue, white leather, and it had a CB radio. My brother purchased it. I got it from my brother. It was $2,000. And a cowboy had the car before us, and he wore a hat that wore away at the top of the interior. And so it had a hole right where the cowboy hat was. And it was just it was a boat. You could get I got in a car accident with it. I didn't even know I was in the car accident. You know?
It's amazing.
It's huge.
I was in multiple car accidents with my first car. But I got to ask you, so you had a CB in the car?
A CB radio.
What was your CB handle?
You know, I just would listen.
You had to have a handle. You're a radio guy. You didn't have a handle?
I was too afraid to.
I had a CB in my house.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, who did you talk to?
Anybody. Anybody would listen. I would just be out there just trying to talk to people.
But think about
I
this.
I thought I was in some kind of movie, man. I was going to talk to aliens. I was out there talking to anybody. I would talk to truckers. Truckers would come by and you'd scoop them up.
Yeah. That's the equivalent. That's the equivalent of unsupervised kids on 100%. The internet.
I mean, but that's like relatively harmless. Like, unless I tapped into NASA or something else. But I thought what was a very cool handle at the time. I called myself,
what was it?
Excalibur.
No.
Yeah, I was like 12 or I thought that was a cool fucking name. So I'm calling myself Excalibur.
When did you know you wanted to join?
Join the army?
Yeah.
Always. It was like, for me, I've tried to describe it. It was like people who've described they want to join the seminary or something like that. Where I feel like and I felt like it was like that. My grandfather was drafted. My father was drafted. On some levels, I felt like I had to do it or I wasn't doing my part. I felt like I couldn't look my father and my grandfather in the eye.
Right.
And on some levels, I felt like I would be a freeloading piece of shit if I didn't do my part because I went to college. When I joined, my father was going to kill me.
Right.
I mean, he was like, you got a chance to play football. You got a chance to go to college and you want to go down south and roll around in the mud with a bunch of rednecks and play army. He's like, you don't have to do that shit. My grandfather, your grandfather did it. I did it. You don't have to.
Right.
And I think they kind of saw it as an opportunity to break the cycle because we were an old school military family and not every family was military, right?
Right.
Like all my grandparents, the men on my grandmother's side all got drafted. So, it was an exception.
Did your Iraq experience change the way you look at the Army?
100%. Yeah, all of it changed, right? It's always evolving, right?
It's what happened for you? I'm not saying personally, but I'm saying what happened for you where you lost that passion? Would you?
I never lost it. I mean, I love, the Army is kind of like a family member, right? Like you love things about it, you hate things about it, right?
Right.
Like, that's the familiarity and you know it, right? That's the difference about joining is you know it. Right? And I've said before that there's only two things that I don't think you can ever understand unless you've experienced them. It's combat and parenthood. You can talk about it. You can say you understand it. But until that baby's in your hands,
I would add kidney stones to that.
I put that in there too.
No, it's true.
That's great. But I got to ask you, man, because now this is a show that's largely for independents and for unaffiliated, for people who don't have a party. Especially right now, you've talked a lot about honor and integrity, and there's I think a crisis going on in the Republican Party. What is the party going to be? And you have an opportunity, and whether you like it or not, you're going to be a face of the Republican Party. So I asked this of Democrats, and I'm going to ask this of other Republicans on this show, because I'm, a political jump ball. So why are you a Republican?
Well, there's a lot of reasons why I'm a Republican, and I would tell you the same reason. It starts off when your parents are one thing. You either want to be the opposite of them or you want to be just like them. So, the way you look at the world is always shaped by the way you were raised. And I was raised by very religious, conservative people. And there's a lot of peace in the idea that I control my own destiny. That really at the forefront of conservative politics is, we don't believe you, right? No, we don't believe anything. You prove it, right? You say you're not going to break into my house. I'm still going to lock the door, and just in case you get through that, in order to truly appreciate liberty, there has to be a paranoia about protecting it. Now, when it goes too far, it's radical and it's crazy. And just like on the left, that is the way we should all live. in a utopia where everyone is going to be treated the same and everyone has the same opportunity and everyone will take advantage of it and there won't be anyone that will exploit it. That's heaven. I believe that that's what I'm going to see when I meet Jesus, is that I will see a liberal's utopia. I don't disrespect that. And I don't want to fight. I don't want to stop to fight to get to that. But it's not real and it's never going to happen. And as soldiers, we found out that all those stories and all that training is great, but that's not real either. Because as soon as you get fired at, rank is ceremonial. And you're just out there hooking and jabbing, trying to stay in the fight. So a lot of it, I'm just saying that I'm proud of what I believe, and I'm proud of but my party, I don't want to be identified by my party. I want to be identified by my army. I want to be identified by my generation and my peers.
That's powerful. But that makes me ask you, then why be in a party? Right? Because you're exactly the type of guy that could transcend party.
The liberal.
Right? And I'm not saying be a Democrat.
No, I understand.
I'm saying what you said, I'm the party of the army. You know, there's a rising, what we've seen in the veterans community, especially the fastest growing percentage is unaffiliated and independents.
Right.
And if there was the veterans party tomorrow, right, and we had you and Westmore, right, guys who are on different sides, politically different issues, but you have this same sense of cohesion, of honor, of integrity, of country over party, I think a lot of people would get behind you. Right.
But I think though that when I meet libertarians all the time, and I tell them, I fear libertarians more than I fear liberals.
Why?
I just think libertarians are a danger to the republic. No, I really do. I love them. They're brilliant. They're always thinking. They're always reading. Right. The reality is that there's always a reason why someone doesn't want to identify as something. Right. You could be a pro-choice Republican that is just so passionate about abortion that you're just like, screw the party. Yeah. I'm a Democrat. Yeah. Blue Hawk, the Blue Dog Democrat did not die. They just stopped talking about it in public. They're still out there, and they still exist. But honestly, the third, you got to have four parties to be real, and you can't just third party it. You can't just independent it. All you're going to do is you're going to screw up an election, and
or save the republic.
Save the republic in the sense. If we were parliamentary,
like the parties are. In my
view,
if we were
a parliamentary system, yes.
Like in my view, like let me just give you an example. I think a lot of folks listening to you today believe in you, and support you. And if you stand alone or running for office, you'll probably do better, especially in New York, than if you run as a Republican, and maybe in your district if you run as a Democrat.
Right.
Like I think you have a unique ability to transcend party, and that's part of what I think on some levels being an independent is kind of like being a libertarian. It's a little hard because you always have to defend it. It's a harder path.
Oh, it is.
Libertarians constantly have to not only explain why they're libertarians, they have to explain what it means to be libertarian.
They're like, they're Seventh-day Adventists. They're constantly explaining why they're different.
But I got to ask you this related question too, Dave. You have been a very public supporter of Trump, right, for a long time and now. As a military person at a time where there have been so many issues, the most recently, the criticism of Lieutenant Colonel Vindman. But before that, let's talk about the easiest ones. John McCain, right?
Right.
Or the Khan family.
Khan was in my unit, by the Captain Khan was in 2-2 infantry, so I knew the man. So I'm not going to reflexively.
But what I would view, and I think many would view as crossing a line.
Listen, there is no doubt at all. I mean, here's the thing that just I don't stick up for like the total BS, right? Yeah. There is not a person out there that is shocked by anything President Donald Trump says. I mean, it's absurd.
I'm shocked sometimes.
Oh, come on.
I'm shocked sometimes.
No one's shocked.
I'm shocked sometimes.
He could literally just record himself going. No one would care at this point. Donald Trump knows exactly what he's doing on Twitter.
100%.
And is it presidential? A lot of people thought Obama wasn't presidential when he sent emails.
100%.
So
I'm not going to be the guy who defends Hillary or defends Obama.
I'm just saying that the Democrats are going to select a candidate, and the Republicans have Donald Trump. There are a lot of things that I would make the argument that whether or not you're 100% with the president or his policies or believe in the man, the people he pisses off are people that have never been touched in our spectrum.
That's true.
Ever.
Sometimes Gold Star families.
Well, but understand though, a Gold Star family that is so offended that they take their outrage to the Democratic committee is a little bit, I guess, to me, here's the thing.
The question I think, Dave, is can he do it in a way that is, dare I say, more respectful, more civil, right? More honorable.
We can all be more honorable.
Right.
Absolutely
right,
be more honorable.
Right.
Well, again, what I'm saying though, is that this is not a shock.
Right.
You can report on it and say it's disgusting.
It doesn't make it okay.
No, but to me, it's like talking about the smell emanating from the restroom. You know, it's horrible.
I want to ask you.
I agree.
What
are you going to do?
Let me ask you about a specific issue,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
The most unpopular move I've ever seen him make with regard to the military was abandoning the Kurds.
Oh, stop.
No, it really was.
No,
I mean,
Paul,
bipartisan. Like,
Paul,
I don't think
listen,
maybe there's some, do you think, I want to ask you, again, do you support that move?
I think,
and what do you think about it? I'm asking you to, and if you don't want to talk about it, we don't have to talk about it.
No, I love it.
But I think that's what I've seen, honestly. Republicans, Democrats, inside the Pentagon, people on active duty were really pissed off.
I think they're all full of shit.
Really? Tell me
100% full of shit. First of all, we're not talking about the Kurds, we're talking about the PKK, right?
We're talking about all Kurds because we're pulling out.
But what Turkey wants is the PKK. The reason we have the relationship...
What Turkey wants to attack is the PKK.
Which is a terrorist organization. No, arguably, they're on our State Department list.
Okay.
I mean, Obama said it. Bush said it. Okay. PKK are bad guys.
The Turks definitely say it.
The Turks say it.
Right,
but I'm saying it.
Yes.
If anyone who went to Kosovo knows the PKK is a terrorist organization. Okay. So that's here and there.
Let's say the Kurds that our special forces were standing next to a month ago.
Okay, now this is a completely different
scenario.
Very
specific, right?
Right. I would make the argument that if anyone was pale-faced when Yazidi Christians in that same zip code were being slaughtered when Barack Obama didn't choose to do a damn thing in northern Iraq, I think the hand-wringing is completely political and ridiculous. I love to have a relationship with Peshmerga. I didn't make Turkey a NATO country. Okay, the Republican Party certainly didn't make NATO a partner with Turkey. That's you rolled the dice on that. Okay, so now
they said no to us when we wanted to come invade from the north,
and now they want F-35s,
right, yeah.
And now they want missile defense,
right.
And now you elect an ideologue. Right. You know, that's the problem with democracy is that in the Middle East you're going to get some really popular assholes, and they're gonna. But Erdogan has got major problems. I wouldn't trust him for anything, quite frankly, right?
Right.
But I will say that if we're going to look at the wheels coming off the cart in Iraq, there was a 3-mile convoy that came into Western Iraq from Syria when ISIS invaded. We're dropping JDAMs on dudes who are making butt dials that are living in caves. There is no way on earth that someone at CENTCOM, someone in the administration did not see that convoy of RAV-4s with black flags coming into Iraq. They chose to let them come in, and they chose to let a lot of slaughter happen. So if we're going to talk about Trump's relationship with the Kurds, my God, Paul, I mean, there is a lot of shame in Iraq.
So you're okay with it? You're okay with the pullout, and even though our troops are now getting eggs thrown at them by our Kurdish allies, we were standing next to them in a trench fight, a month ago, and then the president says, "Hey, you guys are out of here." We've left them. I think you will admit we've left them to a much more difficult situation, potentially to be slaughtered.
Actually, they're not in a more difficult situation because now they have actually weapons to defend themselves. And in the Obama administration, they didn't get that.
You don't think they were better off with Green Berets standing next to him?
First of all, I don't think the Green Berets are better off standing next to the Kurds.
But that wasn't the question.
No, but do I think the Kurds are better off having an American presence there? Of course. Do I think that we should ever abandon our relationship with Peshmerga? No, I think that is shameful. But I think that the response to President Trump leaving the Kurds is the same response I get from President Trump on everything else.
Yeah, but that's not me, right? I'm talking about it from a tactical standpoint, right?
How about this?
From what I know, when you and I were in Iraq, we had Iraqi allies, right? If tomorrow, President Bush said, "Boom, you guys are out of here," and we had this happen, you had this happen, we got pulled out, and our friends died. I had Iraqi friends who, when we pulled out, we got the call to go. They were left behind, and they died. Right?
That's all I care about.
And that's what I worry about is this message that has been sent, whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, that they were our allies and we left them hung out to dry. And now I worry, will other allies stand with us?
Okay, but what I would have loved...
Right? Do you worry about that?
Paul, I am 100% with you, and I appreciate you acknowledging that. What I would have loved to have seen is a Paul Rieckhoff op-ed in 2010, which would have gone in the New York Times, Washington Post, you name it, saying, President Obama, what the F are you doing?
Oh, dude, I absolutely.
But that was, I didn't hear
absolutely.
it.
Look, well, you weren't listening. I mean, I'm
saying from the group.
But dude, when I was at IAVA, I was in a much different position. I was speaking on behalf of a constituency. We had issues we were focused on. I had to pick my spots. Now the gloves are off, just like you, man. Right. And this is the fun part, right? Like you're on radio, and I got to let you go soon. You're on radio every day. I'm on the radio. I'm doing the podcast, and now I think I have a more important role to play, and I think you do too. These are the conversations that are going to move America forward.
And here's the thing.
And that's why, honestly, I got to tell you, man, I hope as an independent and as an American that David Bellavia is the future of the Republican Party and not Donald Trump. The way you carry yourself, most of all.
That's kind.
The values that you embody. And I'm a guy who's voted for Republicans. I will vote for the man or the woman, not for the party. And what I hope happens is a different kind of leadership to come. We had JT Lewis on. He's 19 years old, running for office in Connecticut after his brother was shot and killed at Sandy Hook, right? Plenty of things I don't agree with him on, and he is 100% on board with Trump, but I think this kid's amazing. And I think he does represent a new face of the Republican Party, in part because of the way he carries himself. And I do think that's important because you and I have the opportunity to bring temperature down or turn it up.
Absolutely right.
And that's what I've loved about our conversation today, and I hope it can continue going forward.
I do, and I think it will because it has to start with mutual respect.
Yeah,
and it also has to come to a point where you're talking about issues you're passionate about, but you can separate an idea from a man and a woman. Mm-hmm. And
sometimes you can, but I mean it's hard. It's hard because you are the person. I like you. I respect you. I appreciate you. And with that comes a lot of goodwill and trust. Right? If you turn around and start shitting on my wife, right, or shitting on my friends, it's not going to be the same. Right. And I think that's the tone is what I think is different. And I think that transcends partisanship. And that's why I hope it can go in the right direction. We'll see. And I think it's going to be voices like yours. Let me finish this point. So the question now is who's going to be Trump's VP? Now there are rumors that maybe it's going to be Nikki Haley. Maybe he'll switch from Pence and pick someone like Nikki Haley. Right. So who would you like to see be the future of the Republican Party? As an ambassador for the Republican Party, as an advocate for the Republican Party, who do you think represents not now but the future?
I think you're looking at these hybrid. There's a new form of Republican that's out there. We have to have more women. We have to have more diversity. It's just a sign of the times. You can't even if you're saying the same thing, you have to look different. The Republicans are not the party of rich, white guys, and yet we run rich white guys for president every 4 years, So there's got to be something that we, move to just, I think, where America is. And the other side of that, though, I believe the future of the Republican Party is African Americans. I really do. I think African Americans are going to realize that they are 100% correct with the way most black people live in our cities. That housing is, we have Guantanamo people living better than some people do in the city.
Is there, I'm not going to challenge that, but to ask you, is there anyone in particular you think?
No, I'm just saying
that is a leader that like, who would you, who do you see as folks that you could get, let's assume Trump gets reelected and leaves after a second term. Who are you looking to and hope that will run for president for the Republican Party down the line?
Oh, I'm not an ideologue. I'm not just going to just look at someone and say, because you're my party, I'm automatically with you.
But you see leaders. You've had folks on your show. You meet them on the trail. You see the star. You see the grassroots. You see the farm team.
Right.
And there are many vets, right? Like somebody like Dan Crenshaw, right? Eric Greitens was a star for a long time, right? He was considered kind of the future of the Republican. Duncan Hunter for a while. There are names out there, right?
Sure. Tom Cotton is a rock star. All those guys like Crenshaw and everything else. But again, I think it's going to be a a woman. I think it's going to be someone that is not typical from the playbook. And the other thing is that I think that even if liberals get elected, I think we still are going to rotate around the sun. You know?
Yeah.
I mean,
I appreciate that. Yeah.
No, I do.
I think that's really important because we got to, no matter who wins next year, we got to figure out how to get along together. And
don't get me wrong. I don't want to see it happen.
Right.
But I don't believe the world ends because someone, gets the vote out.
Well, I think we should do this every week.
No, it's fun.
Have me on your radio show.
You're really good.
And we can talk football, but I want to thank you for your time, for your advocacy, for the way you represent this country, the way you represent this state. I think if you ran for governor, a lot of people would be shaking in their boots. I think you could do well statewide. It'd be interesting to have Trump stumping for you in New York City. You have to get some serious security. But
as long as I know where to get a car.
Absolutely. Before we leave, I have the last phase is the giving of the gifts.
Oh.
And so we have gifts to thank you for your conversation today. No, I'm going to hold the mic for you.
Thank you.
So we got 3 things in there.
Wow.
The first is, you can start with that because I know you went right for the whiskey first.
Fort Hamilton.
Hamilton.
That's awesome.
A military base in New York. And it's Fort Hamilton's new double barrel rye whiskey. Wow. And it's a great history. It's named after Fort Hamilton, which many people don't even realize there's a base in Brooklyn.
That's right.
And this is a great supporter of this show in the military. And then we got
Peeps.
We got Peeps. So this is part of the show. Usually we have yellow, pink, and blue.
Right.
And you have to pick a color and why. Somebody stole the yellow Peeps. I don't know who it is. We're going to track them down. Maybe you can get some of your army buddies. But if you had to choose a color of Peeps, yellow, pink, or blue.
Oh, blue.
Why?
Yeah. Blue is just like it's like the infantry color. That's what we do.
Why is the sky blue?
Because God
loves the infantry. Right? There you go. All right. And so as an infantryman, you'll appreciate this. We've got an Angry Americans t-shirt.
Awesome.
And it's American made by the veterans of Oscar Mike. Made in the USA. Very cool. Hard to do.
Very cool.
But these guys are great, and I hope you will wear that and enjoy it on your travels. I know you've been on the road a lot, and I can't imagine. Oh, let me ask you the last question. The movie. You sold the movie rights about your life at some point. Are they going to do the movie about your life?
Yeah, we're still waiting on it. The big issue here is that, these are real people. I'm not going to change their names. They lived, they died. I want to tell America how they died. And I really am not going to turn those men's legacies into Starship Troopers with Fallujah edition. It's not war pornography. It's a story about men who did incredible things for all of us. And if that's not the agenda, then I'm good.
Maybe we get Pete Burr. Have you talked to Pete Burr?
Have not.
Well, he was in this chair a couple months ago, and maybe we can make that happen. But either way, it's a story that must be told. How many books you got?
1 and another on the way.
And when's the new book coming
out? Not sure. Probably about a year.
And how can folks listen to your show or follow you on Twitter?
They just go to dutyfirst.com. It's duty1st.com. And that's the website.
And I am infinitely grateful, my friend, for you spending this time with us, for all that you do for this country. And I'm excited to see what happens. What you've shouldered is unimaginable. And the way you've shouldered it has been incredibly important and diplomatic. And now you're kind of the elder statesman of this new generation of Medal of Honor recipients. So if they're the Avengers, you're like Captain America of the Avengers. And that's I mean it in all sincerity, it's a very important role. To be the elder statesman of that group is really, really important for America.
That's
and we're very, very grateful for you. Thank you, my friend, for being here.
I appreciate it. You're great.
Thank you. All right. So this just showed up. Yeah, see? You never know what might. All right. So we were talking earlier with David Bellavia in the Classic Car Club. First Medal of Honor recipient we've ever had on this show. And probably the first Bills fan we've ever had on the show.
We got to change that.
We will work on it. If you could pick one car, man, what do you like? What do you like out here?
I really like that Mustang, I think 66.
Let's go check it out. So that's a good choice.
Yeah. First of all, it's got mud on it, so that's awesome.
Right?
Right? So it actually works.
Can we open it? It might be open.
Want
to sit in it?
Yeah, that's good.
You can sit. No, you driver's seat. No, you're gonna sit in the driver's seat. Come on, man. Oh, see, you know why? Because now that you got the Medal of Honor, you're driven. You don't drive anywhere. You get driven. The new cars don't smell like a car. You can't smell the oil. You You can't smell the grease.
And look at the simplicity.
It's fucking beautiful. And metal.
And metal.
Off, not AC, right? Man. Not a CB radio. It needs a CB radio, right? The cool part about this show is we get Republicans and Democrats and everybody coming in. Your libertarians, and we've had far right wing people on, we've had far left wing people on, and because you don't have to jam it into a conversation, you can actually talk.
Right.
So I think people are going to be really inspired to hear you talk.
It's always fun to just have a conversation.
And you're good at it.
Well, I appreciate it.
You were good at it before. That's the other thing, man. You were doing radio. That's hard. It's hard to Radio's fun, though, right?
It is fun. It is fun. The other thing is, it's just in life you can't just shut someone up. Drop them. I just
It's true.
It's I'm done.
Are you still doing the show every day?
It's got my name on it for contract purposes. We hit the heavy 100 list 2 years in a row, so we're doing all right. We're 62.
That's great,
which
man.
is all right for our market. It's pretty good.
Really great having you on Angry Americans. Any message for the folks out there?
No, just again, we're pushing the Army here. Join the Army. That's what we're doing.
Why should people join the Army?
Join the Army because you will be a better person. You'll be an individual in a community. You're going to work with people that are diverse and different, and you're going to find a way to get things done and make your country better, make your community better, make yourself better. And we cover your health care.
That's true. That's a very socialist idea coming from a conservative.
I'm just saying, we cover your health care and college debt.
And college, right?
That's right.
All right, man. So Army, Navy, prediction.
I don't care. Only officers care about that.
Really?
Oh, yeah, we don't care.
Okay, what about the Bills? Prediction.
Bills will go 10-6.
10, they're going to make the playoffs.
Yes.
And?
Lose in the first round.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Your lips to God's ears.
All right.
Thank you. David Bellavia live from the Classic Car Club. Honored to have you with us, my friend.